Hi, happy Sunday. Okay, second time recording this video. I put myself in nature and there's a lot of moving of the camera because I kept getting beaten down by the sun. So I have found a quiet spot to record this and to share some transparency while my cat fiddles with the stand. Anyway, I have come equipped with notes, and so I'm going to be referring to these. So if you see me look down, that's because I'm looking at my notes. I made it to 100 days carnivore, and that 100 days was 2 days ago. And there's been some shifts, some pivoting, some movement, and I wanted to just be really transparent and share with you some of the changes that I have made out of necessity. So you will hear me talk a lot about feelings and emotions and intuition and how those things land in our body because I am a therapist, I am not a doctor. So we don't really discuss glucose and monitors and gut bacteria and all those things here, but that's a great place to go and visit Anthony Chaffee and Ken Berry and all of the other astute doctors who do practice this lifestyle if you want to learn more. So let's talk about benefits and downsides, okay, of carnivore. That is, if you are curious about this lifestyle or if you are amidst your own journey and you're wondering if you should keep going. Okay, so the benefits: reduced inflammation, enjoyment and pleasure, ancestrally appropriate, the simplification of your life. If you're overweight, you'll lose weight. If you're underweight, you'll gain weight, kind of like an adaptogen. There's no need for fiber or excessive marketing. Just a little side note, the probiotic market is said to reach 125.5 billion by 2032. That's crazy. So carnivore also teaches you quality nutrition, and it helps to heal damaged mitochondria. Mitochondria are our cells, and they are the root of our metabolic health, which is the source of our mental health. So it's really important that we take care of our mitochondria. Okay, so here are the downsides. Please don't hate me. How sustainable is staunch carnivore? Just like how sustainable is staunch veganism, right? You're talking about two ends of the spectrum, opposite ends. And then how much fasting does one need to do before they learn whether or not something's working for them? Like, how many days do you have to go without food or water to decide, wow, this is really just feeling punitive? Just a question, asking for a friend. The other truth is that some people, whether they're athletes or they're younger or they're just in a different metabolic framework, do better on carbs. If you started out metabolically broken, then you want to become metabolically flexible. And that is a term that Mark Sisson from the Daily Apple, he used to write an amazing newsletter I used to read frequently on this topic of metabolic flexibility. That should be our goal. So restoring glycogen can feel really good, honestly, without a ton of repercussions. There's a huge difference between an apple and an orange, or a box of Kraft mac and cheese and conventional chocolate chip muffins from the grocery store bakery. We put carbohydrates under this blanket and they're not all treated the same. Little hair issues today. Okay. Energy loss can feel extremely depressing. Energy equals optimism. And when you don't have energy, you feel depleted. And when you know that it's not oxalate clearing and you know that it's not keto flu, not having energy is a bummer. And you might start to feel pretty down and out about life in general, which means your perspective might get limited and the way you see your world might get really small. So the good news about protein consumption, revving up your metabolism, is that you increase thermogenesis. The downside of a lot of meat and fat is that you might just get really sweaty, like a lot. Like your circulation will improve to a point, and then it just might get sticky and uncomfortable. Dogma. Dogma is a little scary, and even I had to catch my own little carnivore police and wrangle them and rein it in when I would see or hear other people including some things on their animal-focused, highly animal-based or carnivore lifestyle and think, oh, I thought we were just doing it this way. Well, the truth is there's lots of ways to do this. Got to be really careful with dogma. Another little side note, when Anthony Chaffee says plants are trying to kill you, you have to take ownership over maybe you're just not as well educated about the oxalates and the plant toxins that you're voluntarily choosing to eat. And if you're voluntarily choosing to eat plants, then no one's to blame but you. Sorry. So, digestion inconsistency. If you don't understand your fat tolerance, then that gets very tricky. People either go one end, disaster pants, like, loose stools and lots of diarrhea, or you can find a happy balance, there's that too, or you consume more protein and less fat, and then you might experience something like constipation. So fat is a natural laxative, and there is a very, very fine-tuned balance that is unique to each individual. So you have a sweet spot. For me personally, I missed feeling hungry. So I didn't want to be starving all the time. Like when I was high volume, low fat vegan, I was hungry. There were some days where I could just tolerate being more hungry than others. And there were other times where I was like just walking away from most meals, just feeling not as satisfied, unless I'd eaten a lot and I was like stuffed. So I missed really towards the end. Sorry. Okay, so I missed my hunger. And I've worked with hunger ever since recovering from my own struggles and battles with food and body image, but also into my therapeutic private practice where I work with eating disorders and women's issues and intimacy, that we all have a deep hunger to address and to redefine and to learn about and to honestly befriend. And oddly enough, after 100 days, I was missing that true feeling of hunger. And some people love not feeling hungry on carnivore, absolutely love it. And I respect that. But that's not how I was feeling. It was something that I felt was more of a loss than a gain. In the beginning, when I started carnivore in the first 30 days, because my whole metabolism was changing, I did have hungry days. I was hungry and I would feed that hunger and I was excited to feed it. And then when the hunger went away, I felt kind of sad. So once I started hitting gluconeogenesis around day 55, 60, and also when my energy dipped and I went through my first oxalate clearing, the brain fog came back. And that was a real bummer too, because one of the reasons why I loved carnivore, especially in the beginning, was so much mental clarity, just feeling sharp. And so when the brain fog set back in, I just started to question, well, what am I doing wrong? I must be doing something wrong. And then I looked into gluconeogenesis, and there's mixed reviews, mixed feelings on whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing that the body dips into that. And part of the big truth is we always need to remember the body does nothing by mistake. It is the smartest thing about you. So when it does something like gluconeogenesis and it makes glucose out of protein and fat, it's doing that to protect you. And it's also doing it at a high energy expense. And you feel that because you don't have a ton of energy to go for a jog or for a long walk or to go to a exercise class or do whatever you love to do to move your body, which I hope you do, because I do, and it's one of the best things about being alive is being mobile. So The reasons I believe that I felt great in the beginning on carnivore, and I'm talking the first 30 days, and the reason why I think it's so therapeutic, I mean, ketogenesis, chef's kiss, best approach to healing, bar none, is that I was fearful that I was going to have to embark on a second surgery. When I was, after breastfeeding both of my children for 6 years straight, I had not only lost body fat, but I lost all the tissue in my breasts and in my butt. And at the time, because I was plant-based, I didn't think of eating meat as an alternative to gaining weight and having proper fat distribution on my body. I'm a Taurus. I'm incredibly stubborn. Carnivore was almost like a last resort before considering explant surgery. And as soon as I started carnivore, my symptoms went away. I wasn't bloated, I wasn't fatigued, I didn't have brain fog, I felt incredible. And that 30 days was a sweet spot. And in fact, after the 30 days came to pass, life hit and we lost our cat. I lost my wedding band. We had to move. I experienced my first oxalate clearing, and from there everything just kind of went downhill. And I had moments of inspiration and like I really got it, and I felt like I was getting it more, but it was also leading me to where I'm at now. I truly believe that for anyone, whether you have weight to gain or weight to lose, I think 30 days could never hurt anyone. In fact, I think it could only help. Now, the question is whether or not you go further from there. Ending my vegan lifestyle was so overdue. I had been in and out of the ER 5 times in the last 2 years. I had lost all physical resilience. I would consider myself having quite a high pain tolerance after 2 natural births and lots of tattoos, and whether it's physical or emotional pain, I can take it. But I started to really question how tolerant I was, because I was ending up in the ER with the flu, with whiplash for throwing my hair into a towel, for UTIs that were persistent, and I have an amazing hygiene. What else? I got bursitis, which meant I had to go onto antibiotics. I mean, there were so many odd things coming up in my body that I had to question how appropriate my vegan diet really was. So, ending that vegan stint, that 42-year, I'm on and off vegetarian all my life, but really going back to veganism because it was always, or plants at least, because they were just familiar and comfortable and safe and promising. And I don't know why, I can't really explain that. I think they just, they suited a time and place in my life, and I can't blame them for that. But they did cause some damage in the end, especially with the accumulation of the plant toxin. I felt so good in the beginning. I also felt less isolated because I was building a community, and I needed to get rid of the unnecessary heaps of anti-nutrients that consumed my kitchen. And that's not because I was, my house was filled with, granola bars and snacks and commercial foods. It was filled with fruits and vegetables and soy curls and tofu and tempeh and brown rice and white rice and sweet potatoes. I came from a whole food plant-based diet, so I wasn't unconscious coming into carnivore. And I haven't drank, not because I was an alcoholic, but I gave up alcohol 2 years ago. And so, that I also had that in my favor. So I wasn't detoxing from a terrible diet when I started carnivore. I was coming in with great intentions. I wanted to point out, just for perspective, because I think we idolize people and then forget that they live lives too. They're raising kids, they're living busy lives, they're in marriages, they work jobs, they have to make money, they're doing what we're doing, but also influencing. So Ken Berry has said when he goes to parties or events and there's Brussels sprouts out, he will not hesitate to have some Brussels sprouts. Did you think that when you started carnivore you would be eating Brussels sprouts? I didn't. I thought gone are the days when I would ever look at a plant lovingly. Robert Kiltz, he's actually begun to change his tune quite a bit, but he has said in the past that he will eat birthday cake on his birthday and enjoy an infrequent very dirty martini. There's Kelly Hogan and her use of seasonings and avocado oil mayonnaise, bless her heart. There's Anthony Chafee even, and the fact that he, whether or not he does this frequently, has mentioned drinking alcohol to when he reunited with a friend. And Bella poses with her father, who drinks wine even in his cancer remission protocol. Whether or not she drinks it, I don't know. But let's just use this as information that even the people who are the most influential of all might not be doing it the way we think a perfect carnivore would. But that's because we've allowed ourselves to get heavily dogmatic about it. And no one's to blame for that, but our need or our tendency or our reliance on using food to heal our life. And I'm guilty of that. Especially, I thought my vegan lifestyle was the best thing about me. And honestly, when I started carnivore, I was like, well, this will be the new best thing about me. And it's not. It's a part of me or a part of my journey. It's not necessarily my identity. Because as soon as something becomes your identity like that, then God forbid something change and you go through a crisis. So what am I doing now? Tracking completely saved my ass. I gained about 10 pounds on carnivore, 5 of which were probably necessary muscle regaining lean muscle mass. I am not mad about that. I'd be lying to myself if I didn't only gain muscle, because my clothes started to not fit. I had a hard time crossing my legs at one point. My feet were swelling. My skin wasn't looking optimal, in my opinion, right? We're our worst critics. And I had to really get honest, because I wasn't willing to gain 30 pounds before deciding it was time to make a change. And you can call me out on being superficial or vain, but that's my truth, and this is my precious life, and this is my precious body, and I can accept some physical changes as I grow older, but I had to draw a line between necessary and unnecessary weight gain for the sake of my personal sanity. So tracking came in around day 85, and I really had to get a grip on how much I was overeating. I kept thinking, oh, I'm not eating enough, or maybe I'm overeating and adding more fat and having high fat days and higher protein days, and it was making me feel like I couldn't figure it out. The learning curve just got so steep after the first 30 days. So no regrets. I did a sardine fast. I did a fat fast. I won't water fast or dry fast. That's just not my thing. And I don't think you can fast your way into perfect health. That's just a personal belief. And I know I have blocks around it, but tracking just helped me to get really real on how much I needed to eat to support my metabolism, and also reduce the fat so I could eat more, right? This is kind of where higher volume eating is actually very, very healthy and wholesome when it comes to our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest, that safety response we have in our body. Because I can tell you that I believe I was starting to dip more into my sympathetic nervous system, where cortisol levels were higher and my body was just holding on to the fat. It wasn't using it. And that's when I was feeling lethargic. So tracking really helped me to monitor, get a grip, and see, oh, I'm really steadily gaining. And now I'm losing. And it's empowering to lose weight, to get yourself back to a set point, and to maintain that. So lean meat means you can eat a little bit more of it. Thank goodness, hallelujah. I've been including things like pork loin and turkey and chicken and things that I just kind of ate less of, if at all. And I'm eating them a lot more now and enjoying them thoroughly. I'm going to tell you a story about how I was walking home from the park with my kids, and I walked past my neighbor's house, and their avocado tree was bearing some fruit. And one piece of that fruit had fallen onto the sidewalk and practically ripened. It probably had another day or so to go, but it hadn't been chipped away at by a bird or any bugs. And so I picked that avocado up and I looked at it and I said, I shall place you on my counter. And so I put the avocado down and I let a couple days pass, and the avocado started talking to me, and I had to really figure it out. Was this a gift from God or was this temptation? So basically, I resolved that I had gone so far as to change so many things about my approach to carnivore that adding in some avocado or a little bit of fruit might do more good than harm. But I wouldn't know until I tried. N equals 1, right? I have this little hair that I keep working on. What shall we do with that hair? Okay. And so one day I was having some pork loin and I added some of this beautiful ripe avocado and I went on with my day. I tracked it and worked it into the plan. And then the next day I had the other half. And then the next day I was sitting outside of Whole Foods with my daughter and I got some raw cheese and some grilled chicken and an orange. And I had that too. And you know, it wasn't this like crazy fireworks show inside, but there was something safe that happened inside of my body. Remember, I'm a therapist, so I talk feelings and thoughts and intuition and how emotions land in our body. I don't talk a lot about biometrics. There's a place for that. It might not be here, so I apologize. And at that point, I thought, okay, there's a huge difference between just foregoing all of these intentions and just carb loading and having a piece of fruit and feeling better for it. And because I had not only begun tracking, eating less fat, I'd also started going back to yoga and sweating and like rendering all of this fat onto my yoga mat. So I noticed that with just a little bit of added fruit, I was starting to see my muscle tone again. Hadn't seen that for a while. It was in my legs, in my abs, and in my arms. And I felt like, oh, I'm reuniting with a familiar part of myself, but better, like 2.0 Katie. And that was worth indulging in. That was worth acknowledging. So naturally, I leaned on Paul Saladino and other people who are doing a little bit more of an animal-based approach to this carnivore approach, but it's like there's this spectrum, right? And you've got veganism, and then it goes all the way over here to carnivore, and they're both extremes, right? All plants are all meat. Right there in the middle is omnivore. At the other angle between omnivore and carnivore is animal-based. And I think he's really hit the nail on the head with, it's not about adding in all the carbohydrates back so that you can eat mac and cheese and mashed potatoes and chocolate chip muffins, but so that you can just include some of the foods that come naturally in nature and that they have lower plant toxins and oxalates and all those things, like the lower on the scale, and just help your body as it adjusts into metabolic flexibility. In fact, maybe even promotes metabolic flexibility. So that was inspiring. And not only that, I was noticing that people who are animal-based and succeeding with that and feeling and thriving at an optimal level on that happen to have bodies and physiques that I think emulate really great health. Muscle tone, mobility, energy, beauty. I don't think that we can deny that. And I know beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so that's not lost on me. What people think and feel is, attractive is different for all of us. I'm celebrating my hunger again, and my mental clarity's back. So no matter what, I am sticking to meat focused, meat predominance. When I shop, I'm getting raw dairy, I'm doing the best of my ability. We don't get raw milk here in Hawaii, but we do get raw cheese if you try to look for it at Whole Foods. And so I've been doing raw cheese, kefir, A2 yogurt, lowering the fat, adding a little bit of fruit. So far I've had avocado, orange, blueberries, strawberries, dates, and honey. I had lost my morning ritual with coffee. I was doing the fatty latte for a while and I loved it until it was just too much. And there's something about adding raw honey and coconut oil to my coffee that just makes the morning so divine. I've been having that before I go to yoga. Last little bits, tracking, setting carb manager to high protein keto or even custom, so that I'm even with the little bit of fruit that I'm adding, I'm not having more than like 70 grams. It's just what I'm noticing the trend is. So it's definitely under 100. I feel less isolated, and I think with metabolic flexibility also comes mental flexibility and openness. If I have riled any big questions, please feel free to list them in the comments section. If it becomes glaring to me that I need to just make another video, I will do that. And I hope I'm not kicked out of the carnivore community, because I think we don't want to miss the point on how important social connection is and healing is. And the more dogmatic we get, the smaller the box gets. And we don't want to even be stuck in a box. We want to be expansive and all-inclusive. And there are so many people who need healing on this planet. The planet itself needs healing. We don't want to do this. We don't want to push people away. And so that's my argument to not have you reject me. But also, if I'm no longer singing your tune, I 100% understand that as well, because you have to follow what works for you. So I hope this video was helpful for someone, anyone. If it touched one person, I've done my job. And thank you so much, and a hui ho, and see you at the end of this video, where I'm going to include a little cooking demo. I made carnivore waffles, peppermint carnivore ice cream, and that's it. Okay. Okay, let's get started with this quick recipe section. As you can see, I only have a few ingredients. My waffle iron is already preheated, so I'm going to go ahead and start by separating the eggs, and the waffle is going to cook while I actually make the ice cream. So here I'm just separating the eggs. Started out with a twin yolk actually, which is kind of fun, and then I'm putting the whites in the bowl. And then the whites will go into my immersion blender, where I'm going to also add a can of drained tuna. So go ahead and add that. And then I'm going to add 2 Baby Bell rounds of cheddar cheese. And then a little dash of salt. And then I will blend this up. It won't be super smooth, and honestly I probably could have added 1 more whole egg, but for the sake of the recipe, it is what it is. I chose not to grease the waffle iron, but I think in the future I probably will do that. So the waffle will cook for the next few minutes, and I'm going to whip up the heavy cream. This is an A2 cream that I got from Whole Foods, and it's 12 ounces, and here it is just whipped. And you don't want to over whip it, because then it becomes butter essentially. So keep your eye on that. Add the egg yolks, a little dash of salt, and then I'm doing about 4 heaping tablespoons of allulose and a tablespoon of peppermint extract. 1 tablespoon was the right amount. And then I'm just making this smooth. I'm not looking to whip it again. And then I'm going to add it to a pint jar and then use the excess for a different jar, because I have other intentions for that. But I'm going to go ahead and place these into the freezer and call it done. So here is the waffle. Probably could have used a little bit of cooking spray, but that's okay. I will save this for a sandwich. I think a turkey burger would go great in that, or a regular beef burger, whichever one. It's going to be delicious. But I had to show you the taste test of the peppermint ice cream, because I am a sucker, and this was a little entryway to Heaven's Gate. So delicious. Peppermint all the way. Delish. I hope you make it. Okay, folks, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you make these recipes. I hope you continue getting creative in the kitchen. I hope you know that you are not a failure and you haven't failed carnivore and carnivore hasn't failed you. There's always a solution at hand, so stay curious. It's a beautiful journey. It's okay if you tweak. It's okay if you modify, and it's absolutely welcome to pivot. If your body is telling you it's time, it's time. And carnivore is always going to be there too. So if you just need to come back and be super strict, you can do that. And if you need to, tighten the reins, you can. And if you need to loosen up and include a few carbohydrates, you're still a great person. So trust that and trust the process. And I'll see you on the next video. Ahui ho.